Alright, today we are doing this lovely media wall. Let's have a look. First thing we do, protect the floors. Okay, that should be enough protection, as it's only this media wall. It's very easy to accidentally drop a little splash on the floor there, right there, and then that will catapult straight on that sofa. So it might seem like a little bit over the top, but actually you're just covering your back really, saving yourself from an insurance claim. Alright, next step. Fix up the beading. I glue my beads, and as opposed to nail or bed in with plaster, and it is particularly good on tiny little bits, because I find you hammer them, you can knock them and move them. Your staples sometimes aren't very strong, or they might not fix into hard board. Glue, especially on a media wall where the beads are so crucial, so important to get just right, really help. Okay, excellent. On this one, we've also got a little hole in the ceiling, little unexpected hole. So we've just added a noggin, you can see there to the side, or Kris has, and then remove the screws, cut away all that access, and we will pop a little plasterboard in there, ready to skim. Kris is just finishing scrimming all the corners. I think it's very easy. When people see a media wall, they think, oh, it's just one wall. Shouldn't take that long. But there's a lot of detail, especially if you do a media wall well. So all these angles, for example, it's very, you could rush this and mess them all up and it could look horrific. Or you can take your time. Glue as well, I think, is particularly good for getting them just spot on. Do you agree with that, Kris?
Absolutely.
There we go. We do. And then we've got a little bit of existing board here that was flappy. We had to fix it to the joist. That was missed, but that's not a problem. That's now solid, so that's good. This will also need priming, so the plaster sticks to that. Everything else is fairly standard. It's just over plasterboard, which you don't need to prime, you just skim straight over, which is good. Then obviously a tiny ceiling repair there, we'll put some primer around that too. And then we'll mix up shortly. So the walls, little areas have just been primed. The paintbrush, used SBR, which is quite like. Now, a handy tip to keep these SBR makes these go rock hard if you let it dry. They ruin a paintbrush very easily. A thorough washout with water works really well. Alternatively, hack. Bit of masking tape. Duct tape works better, but masking tape works. This is particularly handy if you're caught short somewhere that there's not really got much room or not got anywhere where you can wash out dirty paintbrushes, which does happen from time to time. Just seal it up with three or four bits of duct tape or masking tape. And you can throw that in your van, and whenever you need it next, take it out, whip off the masking tape, fresh as a daisy. Perfect. I've just realised there's a tiny strip here that I've missed and forgot, which is really annoying, especially when you use this method, because now I'm going to take it all off. Or an alternative method, the other method we use, these are actually to store paintbrushes in, but I've adapted this to store our trusty roller by cutting a little slice out the side there. And I also have a paintbrush in here as well, and this allows me to just whip it out. Bit of SBR, only a small area. Alright, and then once I've finished, just pop it straight back in, close the lid, and I use a bit of duct tape around the side because this gets thrown about in my van and the lid itself isn't super tight. So a bit of duct tape just to keep that lid on tight, that way if it gets knocked over it doesn't hurt anything, and that will keep the brush lovely and soft, so you can just use it, put it away, use it, and you rarely have to clean it. So I should point out this is specifically my priming brush, so I use them both for pretty much just anything priming and only priming. We are about ready to start now. We're going to start mixing up. Before we do though, to do these well, especially see these awkward spaces in here, got a midget trowel, as you can see, that fits in there nicely. And then you've also got another interesting detail at the top here. These are all the fixings the customer would like to keep to secure his TV brackets for his TV, and a margin trowel. You can get all sorts of different size margin trowels. That fits just above nicely there. Without these tools, there are ways to do it, but it's hard work, it's a faff. These make life much easier. Okay, we've got everything ready down here. Of course, the money maker in this lovely refiner leather case is the standard 14-inch trowel. That'll do the job. Again, they come in all sorts of different sizes, but this one works for us quite nicely, and that will do most of it. That's the first coat on. Now we're going to let that tighten in a bit. I flattened off the face, but the sections inside, they're still quite wet, so we're going to let them tighten in a bit more and then whip over them with the corner trowel, and then we will put the second coat on. Okay, we've now flattened pretty much, I think we've flattened all of it now. It's had quite a good flatten, it's tightening up quite nicely. Because there's so many angles, it really does benefit from letting that first coat pull in a bit more. That will help the second coat make sure everything, all the beads are covered and it's nice and smooth and flat. Okay, so now we're going to mix up second coat and get that on. Second coat's all been applied. Give that a few more minutes and then we'll give that all a good flatten and start trailing it up. So a lot of people struggle with when doing these media walls, especially if you're a beginner plasterer, the corner, all these corners, all these internal angles. Well, see there, Kris has got a midget trowel which helps massively, as that's just the right size in there. But also, see the rounded edges on this corner trowel. This also makes life much easier. That is my favourite corner trowel by a mile. Unfortunately, it's just a case of practice, practice, practice when it comes to getting good with your corners. You might be one of the gifted few that get the hang of it straight away, but for most of us, it takes quite a few years to get very, very quick and competent to the point where you can then do media walls like this without getting a sweat on. Has now had 2 wet trowels. So just to remind people of the process, the first coat of multi-finish goes on, you let that tighten in a little, give it a flatten, get a second coat of multi-finish on, let that tighten in, give that a flatten, and then it'll want 2 more wet trowels. That's trowels with a little bit of water. I tend to use a paintbrush or a sprayer, and then once you've had the second wet trowel, it should look something like this, almost done, some people might think, but then it'll want another dry trowel, and then 15 minutes after that, its final polish, then it'll be the clean-up. It's not too bad, in plastering terms that is at least. Obviously it is quite messy, but we've sheeted up well, so tidying up shouldn't take too long at all. Okay, we are all tidied up, and this is finished. Last bit of polythene there, good spot. So this is the new media wall. Having that beautiful TV over there, and be moving over to here.